done it before? Ellen asked suspiciously. He had, more or less, once, and damned if he meant to admit it. Have you? Her eyes opened up like cornflowers. Oh, aye, she said, with my brother Dougal. What? He flung himself back, feeling as though his heart had stopped. She curled up in a ball, laughing like a loon, and it started again. You, he said, leveling a finger at her, are a bloody wee bitch, Helen Mackenzie. Oh, maybe. She was still giggling, but stopped when she saw the look on his face. You didn't believe me, did you? Of course not. Of course not. Still, Dougal Mackenzie, people did say. She snorted. You didn't believe I'm a virgin? He lost patience. Well, are you? You'll know in a moment, won't you? She stretched out flat on her back, hands fisted at her sides, eyes squinched shut. He considered her for a moment, distractedly rubbing his chin. What was she expecting him to do, exactly? She opened one eye. Did you not want to lie with me? Well, what can I really be? I mean, were you lying like that? He gestured hopelessly at her position. Oh. She promptly spread her legs wide, stretching the fabric of her skirt. Is that better? Aye, much better, he said dryly. Sit up, you wee bizzum, and kiss me. She did sit up, but warily. She sat quite still, though she lifted her chin, and he saw the heart beating in her, a flutter under the skin of her throat. With a brief flutter of his own, he realized that she was afraid, and undoubtedly would die rather than admit that. He reached out a cautious hand, cupping her cheek, light as he might pull a nesting dove from the ducat. She closed her eyes and licked her lower lip with a sort of convulsive twitch. Then she pursed her lips, frowning a little in concentration. He did not believe it, but he said it anyway. And you've never kissed anyone? Well, my mother, she said, still frowning, eyes closed. Get on with it, then. He took his hand away from her cheek and massaged his face with both palms. Mary, Joseph, and Brian defend us, he muttered. It was beginning to dawn on him that stealing Ellen Mackenzie was perhaps not such a simple matter as he might have supposed. Why has no one kissed you, he demanded. Because my father and my brothers would have gelded anyone who tried, she replied, opening her eyes and giving him a direct look. Malcolm Grant tried mine, and I told him I'd geld him. That stopped him, did it? She heard the skepticism in his voice, and her eyes narrowed. I did, she said, and he heard a new note in her voice. She was no longer teasing, as she ever had been. He asked me to go walk in the garden with him, and Colm gave me the hairy eye that said I must, so I did. Once out of sight, he took me by the arm and said it was arranged between him and Colm that I should wed him. Then he made to kiss me, and I pushed him away. He thought I was coy and tried again. That's when I took the skin dew from my bodice and said I'd geld him if he tried that again. And if he thought he could marry me against my will, he'd another thing coming. He recalled what she looked like storming in from the garden and swallowed. And then what? He asked. She glanced at him, then away. Her color was high and the flutter in her throat more pronounced. He said, she said, biting off the words, that it was time I learned obedience. And I said it was not his place to speak thus to me. And he said, her eyes were glittering now, dark with anger, that I would be his wife and he would make me so there and then. Grant had seized her by both wrists, but had to release one hand in order to struggle with her skirts, whereupon she had clawed his eyes with her free hand, jerked loose her other wrist, and made what sounded like a credible attempt to make good her threat. He got away, though, she said, still glowering at the thought, and I ran for it. An uneasy thought had come to him, hearing all this. Hear me, Annie Roy, he said, and she stiffened a little. He took a deep breath, but it must be said. Did you ask me to bring you away, only because you wouldn't have stayed to be Malcolm Grant's wife, and you thought I'd do it? Or did you want me? Because I tell you true, lass, I will take your maiden heed if it's only that you grudge it to Grant. Was he as mad as Murtaugh said? Mad to trust her, madder still to take her. The enormity of what he had done was beginning to dawn on him.